Hi there. You clicked on this video because you want to learn more about the public cloud. Well, you're in good hands. Right now, I am a senior engineer helping junior engineers learn more about the public cloud and how to develop on there. So if you want to get started, I'll show you what I did. Let's go. Here we go. This is a new mic. All right, so cloud is just an all-encompassing term for utilizing and renting IT services over the internet rather than using your own devices. For example, on your phone, you would take photos and it would ask you, do you want to store it on the cloud or store it on your phone? When they ask you about that, it just means, hey, I want to send my photos off to somewhere else. I'm going to pay a service to make sure I can use that storage. And rather than taking up your own space, you're just renting out someone else's services and storage space over there so that you're free to do whatever you need to do with your phone. Now, similarly, when you're developing, rather than renting out your own data centers, you can just go on the internet and rent out servers, databases, and all these other services that huge public cloud companies offer. And then you can just get right on your feet and start developing. So when it comes to software engineering, when we talk about knowing the cloud, what that really means is knowing how to use the services of some of the major public cloud providers. So from this point forth, when I say about learning cloud or knowing about the cloud, I'm going to be referring about the major public cloud providers that are out there that are heavily used by all developers and all companies across the world, and the steps you can take to learn more about them. Okay, so what are these public cloud infrastructure providers? There are several companies out there that provide these services, but there's three major ones that you really want to know. There are Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and then the third one is Google Cloud Platform. There are other companies that provide cloud services like IBM, Alibaba, Oracle, but the first three that I mentioned, AWS, Azure, and GCP, those are the main ones that most people talk about, and those are the ones people care about, especially when you're looking for a job or developing with other engineers. So pick one of the three, AWS, Azure, and GCP, and get a foundational knowledge on how to work those services. So which one should you learn? Well, there is no wrong answer. It really depends on what your needs are and what are you trying to accomplish. For example, if you're interviewing for a specific company, it's good to know what public cloud platform that they use so you can train up on it, so you can be familiar and speak the same language when you're talking to them. So if you have no idea where to begin, I recommend just sticking with Amazon Web Services. It's the largest one by far out there. It's heavily adopted by most developers and also most Fortune 500 companies. So the chances are, if you're applying to a job and you're not sure which cloud provider they use, they're probably using AWS in some department. So just as a heads up, I started with AWS. It was the most common one utilized out there. My company uses AWS, and I need to ramp up my skills to learn and be able to contribute to my team. So for the remainder of the video, I will be talking mostly about AWS and AWS resources, but you can apply the same basic skills across any of these platforms to get what's right for you. All right, so learning the basics. First place I recommend is right here on YouTube. That's where I got started, and there's some great channels out there that have fantastic detailed tutorials on what you need to learn to get yourself familiarized in the public cloud. If you go right here on YouTube and type in AWS or AWS beginner, you'll see a slew of great content to get you introduced to AWS. Personally, I like Neil Davis and his tutorial on the introduction to AWS for beginners. It goes into detail about a lot of the major services in AWS. I recommend going here to get yourself started. Another great place to start is to just go searching online and see what's out there. Some of the most common and heavily used ones will show up right there on Google. But here's one that I recommend called AWS Newbies. It was started by Hiroko Nishimura when she was studying for the Cloud Practitioner exam. I'll talk more about it later. But essentially, she was a teacher, and she got into IT, made that career shift, and she started working with public cloud, and she wanted to pass the Cloud Foundational certification that AWS provided. And as a study guide, she created AWS Newbies. It's pretty great. It's very easy to read, covers all the core concepts, and if you ever want to take a look at the first certification that AWS provides, it goes to a pretty good step-by-step on what you need to know for that exam. Yeah, this website is so great, it's so easy, I highly recommend it. So check it out, the link is in the description. So like many other professions, there are certifications out there to prove your knowledge. Nothing beats experience, but it's a great start to really test yourself on what your knowledge is behind each of these cloud offerings. So if you take a look at each of the major cloud providers, so Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, they each have their own line of certifications. And there's always a foundational one that you can get started with to help you prepare yourself for their services. If you go to aws.com certifications, you will find all the exams that they provide. Here's a foundational one, it's called the Cloud Practitioner. If you go to Microsoft, this is the Microsoft one. It is called the Microsoft Certified Azure Fundamentals. It goes over the foundations of Azure services. And finally, if you're looking into getting a Google Cloud Platform certification, for beginners, this is the one you want to get. It's called the Cloud Digital Leader. So how do you study for these exams? Well, there's quite a bit of content out there on the internet. Everyone's trying to sell you a little bit of how they studied, but there's also free ones out there. So AWS Newbies has some free content on how to study for the Cloud Practitioner. If you want to actually go ahead and do what I did, I bought a Udemy course. So if you go here on Udemy, if you haven't heard of it, it's an online education platform. So a lot of people can create a lot of educational content. I go here for a lot of IT training. So if I need to learn a new language or learn new concepts, this is where I go. So if you go here and just type in, I'm going to say AWS, there's a lot of great courses out there. And I'm going to recommend the one I took, which is Stefan Mark's AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner. It goes through all the basic concepts that you're going to need to know. My favorite part is that it has practice exams as you go along. It's not the exact content that you would see on an AWS exam, but it's very close and it's supposed to match pretty well. That helped me a lot. When I took it, I finished it in less than a month, probably putting in about an hour of studying a day. And at that point, I was doing some novice work in AWS, so that really helped. But with the practice exams, I understood some of the foundational services are, and it's good for non-technical people because they cover non-technical concepts like billing and setting up basic accounts. And when I finally took the exam, I just went on AWS certifications, signed up for an exam. It was online proctored, and I managed to pass with 94% on my first try. So I attribute that to this Udemy class and the practice exams. I highly recommend it. Go check it out. If you want to take a look at other cloud platforms on Udemy, there's plenty for Azure and GCP. Next, start a project. Certifications are great, but nothing beats experience. Luckily for me, I worked at a company and I needed to use it for my work. So there were projects left and right when I was getting used to AWS. So if you happen to work at a company that uses AWS or you need to be working on projects that uses public cloud, this is a great opportunity to just pick up those projects and then start contributing. So let's say you're in a position where you're unable to contribute to a team because they don't work in the public cloud. Well, this is when you might have to contribute on your own time on some personal projects. So if you need some ideas on where to get started, if you go to GitHub, and each of the public cloud platforms actually have their own project samples that you can try out for yourself. I'll put the links in the description below, but here are some of the examples that we have. Here's one for AWS. I recommend picking up some of these basic ones, maybe an S3 bucket or an EC2 server. Those are good ones to start. Here's a link for Microsoft Azure and sample projects here. Here's for GCP and sample projects that you can try out. Just a word of caution when you're doing this on your own dime and own time. When you create these accounts, you're going to have to set up your credit card and prepare payment. All the main cloud platforms have a free tier, so you want to make sure that you're deploying stuff that is either free or very low cost. So watch out, don't deploy anything out there that it's huge and takes up a lot of resources and money. Remember to delete them, because if you leave them on 24/7 and if you forget about them, they can accrue a lot of costs for you. So watch out for that when you work on these projects. So let's say you try out these GitHub projects, but you need a little more guidance on which ones to work. There are resources out there that could help give you a little more guidance. So here's one that I picked up that I really like. This is a book, an ebook actually. It's called The Cloud Resume Challenge Book by Forrest Brazil. So if you take a look, you can buy this online as an ebook. I paid about $40, but it might range depending on what kind of promotions are out there. Forrest, he's currently at Google, but he put together some resume challenges that you can start doing to really impress people in your interview and your job to prove that you actually know this stuff. So I'm not actually done reading through all this, but there's some great examples here. One that I really liked is that you can build out your resume in HTML and CSS and deploy it to the cloud. So rather than just saying, hey, I know public cloud, what better way than to get your own domain name, get your resume out there, put it in the public cloud, and send it to people, and just say, hey, this is built in AWS using these technologies. So I thought that was a great idea. I don't know why I didn't think of it, but that's a good one to get started, so try that one out. So I hope you found that helpful. These are the steps that I took on my cloud journey to really get familiarized and hunker down to learn this stuff. And I think it could be really helpful for when you try to learn more about the public cloud. So this is my first time creating a YouTube video. I hope to create more this year. That's one of my goals for 2022. If you enjoyed the content that I'm creating here, I will really appreciate a like and subscribe. So thanks so much. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Johnny.